We are taking a bit longer than usual in this chapter because I believe this chapter is very crucial. As the Christian live in a world where we would think that most government are not good. You look at the news in the US, you look at the news in many countries, very often the government is attacked, right? And it's easy for the Christian to have the wrong view of how we should respond to governments. And when we don't have the right view, we actually displease God. So that's the whole point. We want to be very thorough, so you can ask questions. If I don't have the answer, I'll find out. But be very clear of this topic. When you read newspapers, when you're among your friends, when you are put in subjection to something by the government, how should we respond? How should we think? It's very important because this is almost part of our daily lives, right? We live under the government in Australia. It's part of our daily lives, so we must be very clear how the Christian ought to live under the government. Before we go further, who did not bring, or put it the other way, who needs chapter 23 notes again? Put up your hand so that Pei can give you a copy. All right, Vincent. Vincent needs one. Okay, I've given up the notes, the questions as well. Now, before we go further, there was a question that was raised after the last session, and the person asked, remember we talked about, is it all right for Christians to bear arms, right? Is it all right for Christians to bear arms? So do you remember, is it all right for Christians to bear arms? Ben? Yes, right? It is not wrong. And where was the example? Okay. But from scriptures, where's the example that it is not wrong for Christians to bear? No, point number one is the civil authority can bear arms, right? They arm them with power of the sword. Point number one. But is it wrong for Christians to bear arms? Why did we say yes? Who can remember? Mabel. Is it wrong for Christians to carry arms? So long ago. Jung, do you remember? Depending on what job. Yeah, so some people say that Christians should not bear arms, and therefore they should not take jobs that bear arms. So shouldn't be policemen, shouldn't join the army. Then we showed from Scripture that the Scripture does not forbid Christians to bear arms. All right, so Howard remembers. Which example in Scripture? Old Testament, New Testament, Cornelius, well, okay. But what about a very specific example? Very good, Luke 22. Let's turn there, Luke 22, because there was a follow-up question. And this question is very pertinent to today. Now, Luke 22, verse 38, for example. Luke 22. Luke 22. Now, the instance where Christ was sending the disciples out, right? Now, look at verse 36. Shall we read verse 36 together? Then said he unto them, but now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and let likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Christ told the disciples, go buy a sword. So Christ did tell the disciples to arm themselves. Because as they go out, as they travel, they will meet robbers. They will meet wild animals. So nothing wrong. So Christ said, go arm themselves. So the person asked, are we therefore advocating and encouraging Christians, if you live in a country, if it's okay for you to carry a gun? You know, there's this big debate in the US constantly in the recent months about arming teachers with guns and the right to bear arms, and there's a lot of people who say no, shouldn't, some say yes. So now, are we therefore encouraging Christians to, is it to go bear arms, go buy a gun? Is it not legal in Australia, right? They stopped that at some point of time, but in the US it is. So if you live in the US, do you want to go out and buy guns and arm yourself? Sujin, are we encouraging, are we pro arming people? We are not. Then, but Christ said, go buy a sword. For them to defend themselves, right? For them to defend themselves. Okay, so you live in an unsafe place. Can you bear arms? Can, right? Okay? So you can. So if you live in an unsafe area, would you buy a gun? You'd rather not bear a gun. It's okay too. It's your personal choice, all right? Now, if it's wiser, but it's okay. But now, are we asking people now? So actually, Rowena asked the question. Rowena, what specifically was your question? Can't remember, but it was a good question. Now, so should we, okay, Sujin stays there, and then Sujin stays in a not a good area. Sujin goes out to buy a machine gun, a bazooka, all right, and 20 swords, all right? So, does it mean we do that? Are we encouraging that? No, why not? Versus what? Say again? 2 is enough. Very good. So let's read verse 37 and verse 38 together. And they said, Lord, behold, here are 2 swords. And he said unto them, it is enough. It is enough. I mean, we laugh, right? The disciples, Lord, 2, enough. So the disciples also got carried away. But the Lord says 2, enough. Is the Lord going to protect them? Yes, correct. But the Lord still say, practically, carry arms, okay, if need to. So you don't need to, there's no need to. But it is not like going out to buy yourself all sorts of guns because you like those equipment. Okay, so answer your question, all right? So we are not promoting bearing of arms for the sake of bearing arms, okay? All right, so that is done. Yeah. Wow, exciting.
I still don't find it really answer the question, because it says, okay, we could only 2 swords. So therefore, are we allowed to go and buy a gun?
If you live in a country where we are studying about the civil magistrate, right? If it is in a country, we are supposed to subject ourselves to the law of the country. If the country says no, and as far as I understand, Australia used to be able to carry guns, but they stopped that, right? So it is no longer possible in Australia. It's no longer legal in Australia to bear personal arms, as I understand it. So if it is not, then we should not. But if you live in a country, so for example, Sujin travels to New York, he works in the Bronx for a year, and then he needs to carry a weapon to protect himself, then it is okay. But he don't need to. But the point is, the people just say, how many? 10, 20? The Lord say 2, enough. The point is, have what is sufficient to protect yourself. Sujin don't have to go have samurai knife here, and then machine guns hanging, slinging around, walking around. That's what some people would do. Right? So it is all right to arm ourselves, but for the sake of protection and not what some are doing. They're buying machine guns that are difficult to justify that it is for protection of self. All right? So does it answer your question, Mark? It is okay, but we do not go overboard and get crazy over the equipment. All right? So it's okay. But in Perth, no, it's not okay. In Australia, no, it's not okay. Yeah. Yes.
Follow-up question. I don't think this is my question, but I have a question.
Okay.
But in America, it seems as though it's a lot of the Christians and the churches that are very pro-gun. Do you know why that is?
Oh, I didn't know that a lot of Christians and churches are pro-guns. I didn't know that.
It seems to be the most pro-gun. I don't know why.
Right.
It's a lot of churches.
Right. So now, if I'm a pastor and say, let's go out and buy machine guns and all that, then I think that's wrong, right? So pro-gun means it's for protection, not for not because we like those guns and we buy hoping to shoot someone kind of thing, like cowboys. always hoping that a robber will come into your house so that you can use your gun. That would be wrong. We laugh, but actually they do that. I mean, some people are hoping that they can use the gun. Yeah. Mark, what exactly is your question? You still look troubled. Mark?
Yeah.
What exactly is your question? You still look troubled.
Yeah. I was actually putting the situation that I'm still thinking of in America. I was just thinking of the biblical injunction there.
Okay, the biblical injunction is, it is not wrong to bear arms. That's for sure. Christ said, go sell your clothes. If you don't have a sword and you don't have money, you'd rather not wear a coat and have a sword than to be killed by robbers or wild animals. So it's not wrong. But the Lord says, then He says, how many should we have? What is sufficient is sufficient. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Matthew 26:52. Matthew 26:52. Yeah. All right. So we'll come to that afterwards, but I can address this now. So let's read Matthew 26:52 together. Then said Jesus unto them, put up again thy sword into his place, for they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Okay? So now, Christ is saying that for they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Those that take the sword for the sake of wanting to make war, and in situations where God does not sanction, means it is not God's sanctioned use, and it is people who want to use swords to go out and conquer and take lives. Then they say, God warned that, be careful, these people, they will die by the sword. All right? And it was a warning to those that were around. Those that wanted to take Christ unjustly, Christ was warning them as well. Yeah. So this part of illegitimate, unjust use. And Christ warned them of illegitimate, unjust use. And then Christ said, I can ask the angels to come and save me. This is not what I want you to do, to wage war. Yeah. So then the disciples will remember from here on, they were not supposed to go use violence to try to revolutionize society. From then on, it was warning to Peter and them, do not use violence to win people to Christianity. He warned them. Okay? And this was something that was disobeyed by what? Do you remember? Pharaoh's Lord Jesus. What's that? The Christian Crusade. The Christian Crusade, remember, they got the children to go on a crusade, and as they're marching, they sing Pharaoh's Lord Jesus. So the Christian Crusade is directly against this statement that Christ just made. They that live by the sword shall die by the sword. Okay? So it was against that. Revolutionary actions with violence. Okay? All right, so now we continue. We have to finish this chapter. Now, one of the questions that is always asked whenever we deal with Christian and the law, Christian and court, is question number one. Look at question number one. Can a Christian take another to court to sue him? Can or not? Someone submitted this for Teens Q&A also. I haven't had time to answer yet. Can or not? So this is about Christians and the court. We should subject ourselves to the court. Ben, you need the question sheet. You need the question sheet. And we ran out. Any more question sheets for? Okay. Anyone else need the question sheet? Oh, so many Bens now. Okay. All right. Now, what do you think? Can a Christian bring another Christian to court to sue him? Wait, no lawyers here. Any lawyers? Okay, doctors, your patients want to sue you. All right? You try to treat Ben, whichever Ben you choose. And then after that, that Ben lost the complete use of his arm. Then Ben wants to sue you. So Ben, maybe this Ben can't. So should you bring him to court to sue him? You could have earned hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because of that, now you cannot. So you have to sue him to get money. Is it okay?
I know somewhere in the Bible talks about using the church administration to deal with the situation first before.
Using church to deal with situations before you go to courts of law. Should you even go to court of law? Anyone in church thinking of suing another Christian outside church? Now, so someone asks, there's a situation where if you run a business, okay, you run a business with another Christian. Maybe 3 Christians get together to start a business. And then one Christian defaults in the business and refuses to pay his part to run the business and all that, and then the company gets into debt and all that. So these Christians say, we plead with the person won't pay up and all that. But they say, hey, we're Christians, no, you shouldn't take me to court. So if you're in that situation, what would you do? Or both of you decide to buy a house. All right? So you think carefully and be a Christian. Both of you decide, hey, Vincent haven't have a job. Right? Okay, Alex has a job. Alex, let's put money together and go invest in a property, and then you pay half the loan, I pay half the loan, and then when the prices go up, we sell it. All right? And then halfway through, I stop paying. Should Alex sue me? Because Alex ran out of money to pay himself. All these kind of situations. Can Christians sue another Christian? No. Okay, Grace said no. Why do you say no? Paul warned in Corinthian church. Okay. Yep. Yes, it's family. So, very good. I'm glad someone at least remember my sermons from 1 Corinthians. Let's turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. That is where Ben Khan is also referring to. 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Christians should not sue another Christian, but is it always the case? Let's read from verses 1 to verse 7, reading together. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust, and not before the saints? Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? If then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. I speak to your shame. It is so, that there is not a wise man among you, no, not one that shall be able to judge between his brethren. But brother goeth to law with brother, and that before the unbelievers. Now therefore there is utterly a fault among you, because ye go to law one with another. Why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do ye not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Now look at verse 7. Now therefore there is utterly a fault among you. So scripture is totally against brother bringing brother to the law, to court of law. Okay? Totally against. So now, is this always the case? Is this always the case? Remember that in scriptures, when, for example, in here, it's about person to person, okay, between brothers. So 2 persons. These are personal matters, and it is understood and believed that this passage especially was referring to one brother owing another brother money, okay, being defrauded, cheated, not treated fairly in terms of financials, so defrauding. So he says, don't go to court. Ask the church leaders or ask the church people to come together to make judgment. That should be the right thing. You bring it to court, it's a shame. The world will look and says, what? You know, these Christians, they're supposed to be honest and they're supposed to be righteous people. They can't even settle this. How shameful when Christians go to court. Okay, so we are told not to. It's utterly a fault to do so. But look, why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do ye not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Personal loss. Personal loss. So if it's personal loss, it should be settled among Christians. Do not go to court. But is it always the case? Now, let's also turn to Matthew 5. Matthew chapter 5. So please be clear whenever we talk about the Christian and the court. Matthew chapter 5, verse 40. Matthew 5, verse 40. Let's read together. If any man will sue thee at law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak as well. So if anyone sue you, then don't fight back in that sense. When it's personal, when people defraud you, when it's personal, especially among Christians, for Christians, all right, we say, settle it. Don't take it to court and drag Christ's name to shame. Now, but are there cases where Christians are not allowed to appeal to court of law? Turn the famous one, Acts chapter 25, verse 9. Acts chapter 25, verse 9. Okay, quickly. Let's read together Acts 25, verse 9. Now, here is Paul who wrote 1 Corinthians. Now he says, verse 9, let's read together. But, Acts chapter 25, 9 and 10 together. But Festus, willing to do the Jew a pleasure, answered Paul and said, Wilt thou go up to Jerusalem, and there be judge of these things before me? Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews have I done not wrong, as thou knowest very well. Verse 11, For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. But if there be none of these things, whether they accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them, I appeal unto Caesar. So now, here is a case where ill treatment, Paul did appeal. All right, this is not a simple case of just personal loss. It was more than a case of personal injustice. Why do I say so? Those who did Acts, do you remember? Those who did Acts, let me see. Acts, must be a long time ago. Wait. Okay, Alex, do you remember? What case was this? Why did Paul say, I appeal to Caesar?
To make an example perhaps.
In what sense? Make an example.
Because if other Christians suffer the same thing, if he appealed to Caesar at the time, then others will be protected.
Correct. Right? I'm glad you remember. Now, this was not purely a personal protection. Right? We can appeal. But Paul was more concerned about how the Christians will be treated. If they're treated unfairly and they get away with it, then they will always be treated unfairly, right? So in this case, he said, I will appeal to Caesar, so that the Romans will not dare to do whatever they wish to do to him. And neither would the Jews dare to just mistreat the Christians carelessly, all right? So in that case, he said, and then appeal. It was also to protect others. Then in the case of, for example, FEBC went to court of law, right? Life Church sued FEBC. Now, when Life Church sued FEBC, FEBC had a very clear principle. Do you know what that principle was? Turn to Proverbs 22:28. Proverbs 22:28. Why did we appeal? Proverbs 22:28. Okay, Proverbs 22:28. Shall we read together? Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. When people try to take away or change something that is set, especially the financials, the church gave money to the Bible College to run the Bible College. And if they want to now close down the Bible College, if they want to try and change the use of the Bible College, then they are trying to move the landmarks, understand? Now, what has this to do? This has to do with trusteeship, understand? So they were trustees. They were board of trustees. And people gave money specifically to the Bible College to be run as a Bible College. Understand that? Now, then, therefore, those that are appointed as trustees must ensure that the trust entrusted upon them to protect the use of that money to continue running the Bible College is protected. Understand that? So when they went to court, now they tried to settle out of court, plead with them. You want us to pay for electricity, we'll pay. You want us to, whatever you want, we are willing to talk about it. All right? But they did not want to. They just simply want to go to court, simply wanted to go to court and try to shut down the Bible College. Then the Bible College now has no chance. Should the Bible College say, then let them take the Bible College? Based on the principle of, well, if they sue us for our coat, then give us the cloak as well, right? They cannot, because this has to do with, it's not personal anymore. Now it has to do with trust, a trust that has been put aside for a certain use. Do you know, like for example in church, if someone gives a sum of money to the church and they specify, the moment they specify, so someone give a love gift for library, for example, like $50. The church is supposed to use that money specifically only for library. Understand that? We can't say, not enough money, just forget about this library thing, just use the money. We cannot. Understand that? So now we are talking about when Christians get in a situation where they need to protect things that are no longer personal, they have to act because they are called stewards. Understand? Okay? So now, this person asked a more difficult question. So, the case where the person say, I want to, we can't get this third person, this third Christian in our business to pay up his part for things that we owe vendors. So this Christian refused to pay up. So the other two partners are also Christian. Can they sue this Christian? What do you think? Rowena, what do you think? Can they sue? I know the standard answer. We should definitely try to settle out of court, right? According to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. That's correct. But the person still don't want to respond. Should the other two Christians say, we just take the loss and forget it? Say again? They shouldn't do it. Okay. Okay, you can understand why people, when you say I can understand why people would want to do it. So, all right, there is, they have to look after the family. Okay, so now Mabel, but is that the right reason for them to do it? Because Christ did say if they sue you for your coat, give them your cloak as well. Inner and outer garments, means, yeah, you suffer. Is that the right reason? Oh, my family will suffer, so I don't, so I sue. So now Mabel, Yong, and Rowena is in this business together. All right? So Mabel don't want to pay up. Okay, we pick the youngest, right? We bully the youngest. So Mabel doesn't want to pay up. All right? So Yong wants to sue. Then Rowena say, what do you say just now? I wouldn't do it, but I can understand if Yong wants to do it. Right? But you don't want to do it, right? You don't have people depending on you. But you have to think of the principle carefully. Think of the principle carefully. All right, so now we all come to church. Then they look for who's the wise man, huh? Yeah. They look for, cannot, because, okay, they look for, let me see, okay, Uncle Mark, all right, the silver hair man. Uncle Mark, how? How are we going to solve this? Rowena says she doesn't want to sue. Yong wants to sue. But each must have their reason. What would you advise? Now, based on the principle, when it's personal, we don't sue, right? Okay? Now, is this personal now? Depending on the company. What do you mean? If it's private, limited, you take it. Have board, has shareholders and all that. Very good. Now, once there are shareholders and other people who have entrusted you all to take care of the company, then it's no longer whether you want to take the loss or not anymore. Understand that? You are now entrusted. Just like FEBC, they were entrusted with the trust to take care of the Bible College and its funds. So when, in that case, so in that case, you have responsibilities, all right, to shareholders. So it is not personal anymore. Yes, but if it is just the few of you then say, I want to take the loss. So she wants to take the loss. She says, it's okay, I take the loss. But Yong doesn't want to take the loss. How? Actually, so Yong said, Rowena, give me your money. That's exactly the solution. If Rowena feels very strongly, but I'd rather take the loss, I don't want to. But if the other party say, but I still want to, go ahead. And it's personal. This is not shareholders anymore. All right? Then Rowena will say what? I buy my share out. Right? So I just pay up my part in the shares in this company, and then it's up to you what you want to do. I buy myself out. Understand? So these are the difficult options when we get into business and we get into situations where there are legal involvement. Personal, the Bible says, why would you rather not be defrauded? You know, why don't you just take loss? It's private. Don't go to court. If the church, after the church deal with it, still the person doesn't want to behave, then just take the loss. When you enter into partnerships and all that, please be very careful. Understand all these things. So sometimes Christians happily go into partnership, buy house together, buy this together, buy that, invest on this together. Understand all the complexities that you get into. What for? Get into all these fights. Okay? All right, so I just want to answer this because this question always comes up. So those are the Bible verses. Now, next, what is the key point of 23.3? Okay, let's read 23.3. Very long, try to understand. 1, 2, reading. Civil magistrates may not assume to themselves the administration of the word and sacraments, or the power of the keys of the kingdom of heaven, or, in the least, interfere in the matters of faith. Yet, as nursing fathers, it is the duty of civil magistrates to protect the church of our common Lord, without giving the preference to any denomination of Christians above the rest, in such a manner that all ecclesiastical persons, whatever, shall enjoy the full, free, and unquestioned liberty of discharging every part of their sacred functions without violence or danger. And as Jesus Christ has appointed a regular government and discipline in his church, no law of any commonwealth should interfere with her, let or hinder the due exercise thereof among the voluntary members of any denomination of Christians, according to their profession and belief, It is the duty of civil magistrates to protect the person and good name of all their people in such an effectual manner as that no person be suffered either upon pretense of religion or infidelity to offer any indignity, violence, abuse, or injury to any other person whatsoever, and to take order, and all religious and ecclesiastical assemblies be held without molestation or disturbance. Now, what is this about? When you read it, you will notice it's about church and the government, church and the government, and church and the government. Okay? So Ben, as you're reading it, what do you think is the key point? Because it's very long, so I just want to ask, what do you think is the key point of 23.3? There's just one key point. The civil court has no right to interfere with the affairs of the church. So this is about separation of church and government. Understand that? Separation of church and government. We need to understand that. Separation of church and the government. Okay, so that's the main point first. Now, but a few things. We must understand this very clearly, because this is another thing that happens in some churches, in other countries. Is it right or is it wrong? Now, question number 3. Why should not a Christian civil magistrate be automatically also be a church leader or administrator of the Lord's Supper or preach or decide on matters of the faith in the church? Why? Why do you think so? Ben, the other Ben. Why do you think so? The Westminster said civil magistrate should not automatically be church leader. You know, in some countries they look up to civil magistrates, right? So if your church has a judge, or then they say, wow, judge. So judge, very powerful. Judge should be pastor. Judge should be handling Holy Communion, should preach. Should be the one that decide on church things. He's a judge, you know. Ben, why? Let the least be the judge. Okay, so one is, you should not just, because the person is a judge, then therefore he should be church leader in the church. Why else? Why else? Now, let's turn to some scriptures that are given to us. Now, please do not have this concept that just because someone holds government authority in the world, then therefore in the church, the person should automatically be a church leader. Understand that? Okay? Some churches have that concept. Some churches end up in situations where politicians naturally just made the church pastor or church leaders. Okay, we must never have such a concept. Separation of church and the government. Now, maybe I answer the next question together. Okay, answer the next question together. Should a pastor be a politician or a politician be a pastor? Yong say no. Why? Answer these two together with the Bible verses. Why? Should a pastor be a politician? The pastor's job is supposed to focus just on the church, okay? But he can focus. He said, I can focus on the church as well as able to work as well as a politician. Or should a politician say, hey, I'm a politician, you know, I'm very intelligent, I'm a high court judge, appeal court judge, so you should make me pastor. The priest cannot become king. King cannot become priest. Okay, well, first of all, now, let's look at the calling. Let's turn to Hebrews chapter 5, verse 4. Hebrews 5, verse 4. Now, can a person who's simply, well, he's a very high-ranking government official, should he say, use me as a pastor or church leader, elder, deacon? Hebrews 5:4, let's read together. And no man taketh this honor unto himself, but he that is called of God, as was Aaron. In the New Testament, it's explained. No one take this spiritual calling upon himself. No one can say, I'm a judge, I'm a magistrate, I'm a CEO, I'm very intelligent, make me pastor. No, it is no one take upon himself this calling of God. It is God that calls. It is called of God. But he that is called of God. Just like in the case of Aaron, it is appointed by God. All right, so that is one case where the church should never, I hope BPCWA, as long as we live and exist on earth till Christ's return, we will never ever have this concept that someone who's intelligent, rich, clever, powerful in society, famous in society, should make the person pastor, elder, or deacon. Never ever. The role is a calling from God. No man takes upon him himself. People have their own calling. They have their own high calling as a judge in the world or whatever. But it is not that he should be a pastor naturally. Now, there are many other verses, but I want us to read so that we are very sure in our heart. If one day the church changes, you all must stand up and speak. Understand? Now, let us also turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28. Okay, reading. And God hath set some in the church, first apostles, secondary prophets, thirdly teachers, after miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, governments, diversities of tongue. Verse 29, are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, are all workers of miracles? The answer is repeatedly no, no, no. All right, expecting the negative. So here Paul reminds the church, it is, look at verse 28, God hath set. It is set by God. No man take upon himself. No man should use the world's criteria of high-ranking official, therefore church leader. What is the, God has said, how do we know? How do we choose based on God's criteria? Fiona. How do we church? How do we choose? Is it God has said? How do we know then when we appoint someone? It is God's appointment. What criteria do we use? Very good. Titus chapter 1, for example. 1 Timothy 3, for example. All right? So then we know it is based on God's principle, not simply because the guy is a high-ranking official. Never be a church like that. It will be chaos. Now, Ephesians 4:11, can we please turn there? Ephesians 4:11 and 12, reading. And he gave some. Ephesians 4:11 and 12. And he gave some apostles, some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the perfecting of saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ. Now here, verse 11, he gave. It is God that gives. And it is for these purposes, work of the ministry. All right? So God gives the... Now, we studied last few weeks. Who appoint magistrates and judges and governments on earth? God, right? God. For the what? For the protection of the common people. It is their role. In church, it is God that gives pastors to the church, teachers to the church. So it is again God gives for the ministry of the church. So we don't mix the two. Okay, so that's very, very important for us to realize. And rightly, like Yong pointed out, should a pastor be a politician? Why not? The pastor is supposed to be called. And here we read, he is called and he is given to the church. Understand that? Now, this thing is very clear in every full-time worker's mind, I hope at least, that we are given to the church. We are given to the church means I have nothing else to do in life anymore because God has given me to the church. And that is the only thing I'm supposed to do. Understand? So I cannot say I want to be a pastor and I also want to be a politician. In other words, the simple reason why a pastor cannot be a politician, the politician means government, working in the government. Some pastors are political. No, not the kind of, pastors should never be political, all right? Now, but pastors should not take this kind of job. It's the same as a pastor should not be a doctor. A pastor should not be an engineer. A pastor should not be both. I'll be a pastor, I also am an engineer. I'm a pastor, I'm also a doctor. I'm a pastor, I'm also, and it's very popular now, doctors be pastor. Colin, you want to be pastor? No? Why not? Huh? Not called. Very good. Not called. You're called to be something else, right? So there are churches today, the pastor was a pastor and doctor. Then when he retired, he appoint, who to appoint in church? Not to find a person who is called and send the person to Bible college to be trained. What do they often do? Who's a doctor in the congregation? Start grooming the person to be the next pastor. Never have this kind of concept, okay? Banish the thought permanently in our minds. Other churches, what they do, we don't care. But we read from the Bible, it's called and given. Don't mess the person's life. You make Colin be a pastor here, you mess up his life, you mess up the church. And no pastor should ever think of doing anything else. Full stop. So this not just cannot be politician, he cannot be anything else, full stop. He has only one reason in life, and that's to serve the church of Christ. Okay? So, very simple. Now, it gets very complicated when you are, especially if, number one, it's just purely wrong for a pastor to want to be something else as well, all right? But pastor as a politician is the worst combination. You agree? Pastor and politician, you're always in the newspaper, you know. And then if the government say we want to sanction abortion, same-sex marriage, you're a politician. How? You get into all sorts of difficulties. And when we covered that topic, that question, one question now, should Christians never ever be politicians? Or work as a politician in the world? Sujit. Yes. It's not like Daniel was, but they're always ready to die. Remember? They're ready to die. They know where the line is, and they say, we will never cross that line. If you want, I die. So a Christian who enter into this profession must be ready to what? Resign any time. Okay? So that is the point. That's the point. Okay? So I hope that this is very clear in every person in our church. So let me see any other verses that I can give you. But I think, now, in the Old Testament it's the same. Turn to 2 Chronicles 26, verse 18, and then we move on. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 18. It was the same since the Old Testament. 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 18. Like reading together. And they withstood Uzziah the king, and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziah, to burn incense unto the Lord, but to the priests and sons of Aaron that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor from the Lord God. Do you understand Hebrews 5:4? Hebrews 5:4 is saying the same thing. And no man taketh this honor unto himself, but he that is called of God, as was Aaron. Okay? Calling. I hope there's no one here that ever think of wanting to be a pastor simply because he wants to be a pastor. It is a calling. That's it. Nothing special, but it must be a calling. Now, next question, quickly. I want to finish this chapter. Yes. Yes? There will be a problem in what sense? Okay, so Vincent's question is, if another reason why a pastor should not be a politician is because if he's a pastor, then he will give preferential treatment, right? Right? So he will be impartial, and therefore he should not be a pastor, right? What do you think? So what if I, your pastor, say, Vincent, don't worry, I will be a very righteous politician. I will apply all the biblical principles of righteousness as a pastor, and I won't exercise preferential treatment to BPCWA. If there's no tax rebate, I also won't give BPCWA tax rebate.
I can trust you on that, but other people...
You can trust me on that. So you're saying, if pastor say that, then pastor can be pastor and politician.
No. I mean, I can trust that you will be impartial, but other people...
Yeah, you can trust that I can be impartial. It means that I can. So as long as a person can be trusted to be an impartial politician, then he can be a pastor and a politician. You're trying to point out the problem. But that is not the problem. All right? That's not the problem. Understand? That is not the problem. The problem, full stop, is he should not be, because he only has one calling and his 100% energy is given to that calling. Whether he promised to be impartial and all that should not even be in the radar for us to consider. Okay? Yes. For deacons it's different. Deacons work in the world. Elders work in the world. All right. Well, some elders they are full time. Some deacons they are full time. But deacons and elders who are not we see pastors as must be full time. Deacons and elders, we don't see it as full time in the Bible. Yeah. Yep.
Is that 2.3.3 point saying that no church leaders should be involved in being judged or in government?
Okay. Yeah, so we are going to move to that. So the question is, are we saying then therefore Christians should not, especially your elder or deacon, should not work in the government ministries and be a politician or a judge? Are we saying that? No. All right. Number one, we already established in point number 2, it is not unlawful for Christians to be magistrates, correct? Established already. Means deacons and elders who are working elders, it is not unlawful, correct? So to answer your question, point 3, the Westminster Confession of Faith explains to deacons, elders, and Christians who are magistrates how they should behave. Okay? So now we read. Yet as nursing fathers now, it's important that without giving preference to any denomination of Christians above the rest. If you're a Baptist deacon, you cannot say, when we formulate policies, let's give more preferential treatment to the Baptists. You cannot. Means your job is you're supposed to be righteous. That's it. Okay? In such manner that all ecclesiastical person, whether they shall enjoy full, free, and unquestioned liberty. So everyone should be treated fairly. If you're a deacon or elder, there is a magistrate or government politician. As Jesus Christ appointed regular government discipline in his church, and it's the same. When the church exercises discipline, someone does something and the church say, we need to put you under discipline. You cannot partake of Holy Communion, you cannot serve. The government cannot step in and say, no, you cannot stop the person from serving in church. Understand that? The same. Now, here I want to point out some questions, which is question number 5. Should Christian civil office bearers protect the church by giving preferential treatment to the church, other Christians and their own denominations? No. Understand that. If you're working there, now, this is one of the things that I want to emphasize in this chapter. Christians who work in positions of power that you can give preferential treatment, you must be very careful. You're supposed to be treating everybody. You must put on your hat as a government magistrate and look at everything factually. Understand that? Okay? In other words, it also means that you should not expect. All right, for example, if say, Colin again. Colin is working in the government. You're working in government now, right? Not government anymore. Private clinics. Okay, so someone works in the government ministry. Another church wants to apply for land to build a church. And then, say, Mr. X in church is in the land gate. Is it land gate? Ministry. And is a position to make all these kind of decisions. Should the church expect that Mr. X make sure that we get the land? The church should never, understand? We should never put that kind of pressure on a Christian. In fact, we should make sure that he knows he must do his job righteously. Okay? Otherwise, especially when it gets exposed, the name of Christ is again put to shame. Now, if also the church should deserve that piece of land, the Christians also cannot say, hey, then I'm afraid that they may think that I am unfair. Then I don't give it to the church. Understand that? Okay? Now, one of the big problems is Christians in churches, for example, whenever the people are working in certain positions of power, they expect that Christian go and do something for the church. You know what I mean? Get some favor for the church, get some preferential treatment for the church. All these are wrong thinking. We expect the Christian to behave rightly. Okay, so I think it's quite straightforward. Understand that? So please, if you know of someone who works in certain position, do not go and ask for favors. You know, sometimes, and as a Christian, be ready. See, sometimes people, they don't know. They say, can you help me with this? They may think that it's fully right, and they may even ask you, is it okay for you to do this or not? So, for example, you're in a position to do something. Then someone in church comes to you and says, can you help us with this? Can you help me or help my family with this? Now, you must be ready to say, no, this would not be legal. This would not be right. Understand that? But if it's okay, then it is okay. Be ready to say it is not okay. You don't have to feel, hey, because I'm a Christian, he's a Christian, God made me in this department or in this position, and I have the power and ability to help this person with this. When it is not right, you still feel pressured that you must do it. Understand that? You don't. Okay? But because some Christians, they don't know, they're just asking. It's okay to say no. And as Christians, we must be ready to take no. Yeah, you like that one? God make you this, no use, and no use to the church, no use to me. Cannot. All right? You can ask, but be ready to be told, no, I can't. Then say, oh, okay, it's okay, fine. Okay? Understand? So be the proper. This chapter is very important because I want each member to think rightly, to behave rightly. When you're asked and when you're asking. Okay? We expect people to behave rightly. Now, what else? Okay, so I have to say this. Now, point number 3, if you look on the internet, I look on the internet. WCF with proofs is different. Understand that? It's different. Okay? Now, then the British Parliament was running the country. It is written by the British Parliament, WCF, sanctioned by them. All right? So when they wrote it from that perspective for this point. Okay, so when you read the internet one, it's different. I came here, I needed to print, and then Brother Pei was very happy. Don't worry, I'll print for you, Pastor. I said, how come you know how to print from BBK book? It took me a while to learn how to print from BBK book. Then he was just going to print the internet one. I said, oh, you cannot print this one. Number 3 will be different. All right, so since then, there have been changes, and this is what it has become. Okay, understand that? So when you see, you don't, hey, how come different? That's the reason. Okay, so question number 5 answered. Okay, because the separation of church. Question number 6, because of the separation of the church and the state, how should a Christian magistrate function? He should always function righteously and according to the law of the country. Now, if you're called for jury duty, you know, jury duty, all right? Should you go? Can you go? We already say it is not unlawful. For point number 2, it is lawful for Christians to accept and execute the office of magistrate. You have to make jury duty, you make judgment, right? So it's not wrong. But when you're doing jury duty, anyone been jury duty before? No? Oh, Alex. Now, then a church member is the one that is in trouble. So, wow, church member. How? I think they can say, right? I know this person very well, I opt out. It's possible, is it? I presume it's possible. Now, or halfway through you say, hey, actually the person is a Christian, no? How should we behave? We should still make sure that we execute our decisions based on the country law. Not, Christian, give chance, pang chance, give chance, that kind of thing. You must be very fair, very clear in your thinking, okay? So must not be clouded. So that is the Christian's duty. Church and state separation. Church should not interfere. We use our laws to change the government. Neither should the government try to interfere with church government. Okay, so those of you who are called for church duty, this is an important chapter for you to go back and revise. So make sure the person will not be shortchanged because he's an unbeliever or because he's a believer. Now, then we come to this point number 7. What is Rushdoonyism and Reconstructionism? Anyone know that? This chapter, we must cover this. Anyone know? No? Okay. I think some of you may know already. Now, this man called Rushdoony, now he came up with this teaching of Christian Reconstructionism. You must know this because you may not know these terms. You may not know the name of this person, but this is very alive and very prevalent, and it can change BPCWA without us realizing it. All right, so we studied about civil magistrate, church and the government separation of church and government. We saw the Bible verses, right? It is not for you, O king. Separation. Now, then based on that, we have to understand and be very careful when this thing creeps into our church. When any member start to push this kind of concept, then your alarm bells must go up, okay? Now, what is it? Christian Reconstructionism, as what Rushdoony tried to teach, is theonomy. 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 You know, theos means God, right? Theos. Nomos is law. God's law. So Rushdoony, now, remember, this group of people, they are very, very fundamental in their beliefs, okay? They're very biblical in their beliefs. You query them on all Calvinism, on the fundamentals of the faith, they're all there. No problem at all, okay? But they have this problem where theonomy means they believe that the church must make the world be ruled by God's law, theonomy, ruled by God's law. So they believe that the world should be ruled by the 10 Commandments, for example. And they try to bring back the Old Testament social, moral, civil laws back to running society. Okay? We cannot impose, we studied this many times, we cannot impose the 10 Commandments on the unbelievers. Understand that? Are we imposing thou shalt not kill to unbelievers? The government themselves imposes it, understand? They happen to be in consistency with God's law. So these people, they try to change, means they say the government should run the country using God's law. If God says no, then the government should say this, we shouldn't do this. If the Bible says yes, then the government should say yes. Now, did Christ promote that? Let me ask. Did Christ promote that? Mark, did Christ promote that the disciples should fight for changing the world to make it a Christian government-run world?
This may be out of context, but my immediate thought is when Jesus heard a coin, what belongs to Caesar, give to Caesar. So he gave a clear indication that there were two powers.
Yes, correct. Yes. So Christ, later on we'll see that as well. Render to Caesar what is due to Caesar. Right? Don't mix it up. God did appoint government to rule the world. Right? When the disciple took the knife and tried to fight and protect Christ, then he said, put away your sword. Right? And he also told the people, my kingdom is not of this world. Now, understand that? It was a spiritual kingdom. So when is the physical kingdom coming? When Christ will rule. When the world will be run by Christians. When? During the millennium, correct? During the millennium. So Christ told the disciples, and he told the people, if my aim is to make this world a Christian-run world with Christian government, then my disciples will fight. But it says I told them not to fight. That will come later. Now is a spiritual kingdom. Understand that? Okay, so Rushdoony is wrong in trying to do that. Now, then I ask the next question. All right, so question 9 first. What wrong theologies led to erroneous teachings and practices that resulted in the Jehovah's Witnesses and Reconstructionism errors? We studied Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses also say we must bring peace to the world, right? Bring peace to the world. Then Reconstructionism say we must make the world a Christian world. What is the error in their theology that's common, especially in their theology, that created this thinking in them? Ben? Because of our millennialism. Understand that? Because of our millennialism. Our millennialism means what? Alex, do you remember? Our millennialism means now, our meal. When a person is our meal. You remember? No 1,000 years. Means don't have. No literal 1,000 physical year of Christ's kingdom on earth, right? Our meal. And for the our meal, when is millennium actually? Now, right? Now until Christ's return, right? So that's their thinking, that's their theology, right? So because of that, they say, well, we are, before Christ's return, because when you read the Bible, before Christ's return, they think, oh, Christ's return, Christ judged the world. Then the world is in a state where it's like millennium, right? Means Christians are running the world, right? Millennium, Christians are running the world. So, therefore, we must make the world to a state where Christians are running the world, then Christ will return. Understand that? So the Amil concept is, in order for Christ to return, His second coming, we must get the world to become like a state of what it is in millennial, during the millennium. And therefore, they actively go out and try to make the world like what it should be during millennium, where Christians rule the world, where the world is run by the Christian law. Because during the millennium, it will be like that. It will be run by Christ and the Ten Commandments will rule. Understand that? So that is why they actively promote this. Now, so point number 8. Question number 8. Many Christians say, isn't it wonderful to have Christian magistrates because they can make the country and the world follow Christian laws? Is it right to say that? Is it right to want to have a Christian politician so that they can make the world follow Christian laws? Is it right? Mabel? Good to have? But God did not command us to rule the world now. Right? That's the right answer. It's good to have. Well, there's a voice in there, but should a Christian working in the government fight for Christian rights and push down other religions' rights? Should or not? If you are living in a multiracial society in Singapore, then how? You cannot. It's a multiracial society where all are equal. Understand? So is it good? Well, it's good. It's good in a sense where they want to implement something and you know this is not good for the nation because it's a sin and sin will always have consequences. It's a good to have a voice in there, right? But that's different from, hey, you're a Christian, so you should change the laws. That is not right. Understand? You're a Christian, so we should have more Christian holidays in Singapore, less other religion holidays. You know, in Singapore, you have to balance the number of holidays, right? How many public holidays each religion have must be equal. Understand that? They're very careful. Then you can say, hey, you are Christian, then you should fight for more Christian holidays, and then cut down other religion holidays. You cannot. So we should not say it is good for a Christian to have Christian politicians so that they can change the country law to be more Christian. That's wrong. It is good to have a Christian politician, if God calls him to be a Christian politician, and then he can help us have more righteous laws. That's good. Okay? There's a difference. Huh? So think rightly, please. Now, quickly. Now, okay, so we covered number 3 already. Let's read point number 4. It is the duty of the people to pray for magistrates, to honor their persons, to pay them tribute and other dues, to obey their lawful commands, and to be subject to their authority for conscience sake. Infidelity or difference in religion doth not make void the magistrate's just and legal authority, nor free the people from their due obedience to him, from which ecclesiastical persons are not exempted, much less had the Pope any power or jurisdiction over them in their dominions, or over any of their people, and least of all to deprive them of their dominion or lives, if he shall judge them to be heretics or upon any pretense whatsoever. Now, what is this saying? It's the duty of the people to pray for the magistrates. I think we have to turn to this verse. Now, at prayer meeting, we always say pray for the government. Why? So I ask the question, why? Question number 10. I didn't ask. But why? Why should we pray? Why? Turn to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. It is a command. It is an exhortation from God. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1, let's read together. I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. Now, here I exhort means Paul says, I am giving you very clear teachings. Supplications, prayers, intercession. He used all 3 terms that the Bible uses for prayer. Be made for all men, for kings, for all that are in authority. So it is a command. So what we do at every prayer meeting to pray for the government is a biblical thing. Do not take it lightly. We are praying in obedience to God. For what purpose? That we may lead quiet and peaceable life, that we can practice our Christian faith without persecution. So God wants us to pray. Now, can we read 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the king. Does the Bible make clear that we should honor authority? It's very clear. And it is written at a time where the Roman government was not very good. Understand that? But yet they were told to honor the king, the emperor. Now, Romans 13:6. We must read this, Romans 13:6. Let's read together. Romans 13:6. Are you there? Romans 13:6. Reading. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their duties, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Romans 13:6 and 7 is very clear. How should a Christian live in a country? We are supposed to pay tribute. We are supposed to render our duties to them. What they command, we must do. What laws they set, we must obey. Whatever custom they set, we must obey. Unless they are sinful. Okay? We have already covered that in the previous points very clearly. Honor to whom honor is due. Now, with all that, I want to ask ourselves, question number 10. How should Christians respond in conversations when others are complaining about the dissatisfaction about the government? You have this kind of conversation? At work, in church, at home, among friends? Very common. They sit down, complain. Complain, always complaining. How should a Christian, after reading all this, honor the king? Pay tribute to those that are due. Honor to whom honor is due. How should we behave? What will you do, Yong? What will you do? You say that, the Australian government, Singaporeans very good. You go back, you sit down only, God, the government this, the government that, right? What should the Christian do? When we read, we are supposed to honor them, pay tribute, obey their customs, obey their laws. So when all these conversations are going on, what should the Christian do? I also complain about education. I also complain. The reason why I ask this is because most of us do, right? We complain about the speed limit, we complain about the taxes, we complain about the poor this, we complain, right? I complain a lot. Until we move to another country, then we say, wow, our government very good, and all that. Now, the reason why I ask this is after realizing this, God gave repeated commands, exhortations to honor the government. What should we do? What would you do, Rowena?
I think if they do a good job, if they make a good decision, if they else a good decision, if they make a bad decision, then I'll just say, I didn't vote for him.
I didn't vote for him. Is it right? I don't vote for him because he did a bad job. That's not wrong. We're supposed to make right decisions. Ilhua, what would you do? Do Koreans complain a lot about the government? Not so, huh? I think so. When I'm with Korean friends, I don't hear them, but Singaporeans, famous. So, but you hear this kind of conversation, what would you do? What would you do? Command us not to complain. Do what you just did. Just keep quiet. Do not jump into the conversation and take your swing at them all the time also. Right? So, I've known of Christian, and I got very rebuked. There was once I was complaining. Right? And this Christian just whispered to some, then they stood up, they walked away. Then I got very rebuked. That's a good thing to do. Don't be part of the conversation. Right? After that, I learned. Sometimes still complain, but I have to keep reminding myself, God says honor. All right? So don't be part of the conversation. Don't get drawn in. Don't get sucked in. And even if they're not good, if they're not good, then how? We read here, right? Pay tribute to whom due, point number 4. Obey their lawful commands. If their commands are lawful, obey it. Understand? Drive at 50. It's not sinful to drive at 50. Obey it. Ask you to pay tax. Obey it. They are not sinful things. Subject to authority for conscience sake. Now, infidelity or indifference to religion. If they are not believers, must you obey them? Infidelity, if they are not believers, you still obey them. They are not believers does not void the magistrate just and legal authority. Understand that? It does not free us from due obedience to them. Understand that? Okay? So, now, why? Why should we not complain? So I ask number 11, is it duty of believers to stage revolutions and overthrow evil governments? So government is evil. Should we stage revolution? You know what revolutions, right? Should we stage revolution? Or hide, light candle in a dark corner, discuss how to overthrow the government? Should we do that? They're evil governments, they're bad governments. And then other people complain about bad government. You should not, pastor says, should not complain also. But I want to complain. Why? Why should we not do all this? Why should we not complain? Why should we not try to overthrow them? Why? Sujin, why? Very good, because God is the one who placed them there. We studied that right from the beginning already, right? God is the one who put them there, and we read many verses that taught us that it is God. Now let's turn to, all right, about complaining. I want us to read those verses. Then I pray that we will change. I pray that we will change because it displeases God when we complain and murmur about the government. Now, I want to read the verses because we want to see it from God's word. Now, turn to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1. 2 Peter chapter 2. Verse 10, actually. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 10. Shall we read together? 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 10. But chiefly them that walk after flesh, in the lust of uncleanness, and despise government. Presumptuous are they, self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. Verse 11, whereas angels which are greater in power and might bring not railing accusation against them before the Lord. Do you understand what God is saying? God is saying even angels who are far more powerful dare not utter a word against governments that God set up. Because the angels know God is the one who put them there. Whether good or evil, God appointed them. The angels also keep quiet. Because the angels know God is the all-wise God. God, the all-wise God who set up a bad Pharaoh, was for a purpose, right? We read Exodus and said, wow, if God did not set up this Pharaoh, that was so wicked, the people would not have left Egypt, right? So the angels knew God has a purpose, even when there are evil governments. God appointed them. The angels dare not even speak. Don't even dare to utter. And then those who utter like us, those of us who like to complain about the government, let's see what God says about us. He says, presumptuous are they, self-willed. Yeah, self-willed. I don't like 50. I like 80. Driving 80 kilometers. Presumptuous. It's presumptuous. God is the one who set up, and I presumptuously complain. Self-willed. We want it our way. They are not afraid to speak evil of dignities. When we sit there and start complaining, remember these verses, please. Stand up, keep quiet. If you're too tempted to continue, leave the conversation. All right? So next, another verse. Now, turn to Jude 8. Jude 8 and 9. Now, let's Jude 8 alone. Jude 8. Now, let's read Jude 8 together. Likewise, also, these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. The Bible speaks against those that despise dominion. Actually, this is a very common thing today. Young people despise government. Young people despise any form of authority. Fighting against authority is the cool thing. That is the trend now. So don't despise dominion. Don't speak evil of dignities. We studied over and over again good or evil government still set up by our almighty, sovereign, all-wise God. So don't complain. If you happen to be in a country that has a bad government, God has a reason. Don't complain. You want to complain, you cannot take it, don't live in that country. Ask God for His will. If God wants you to live, then live. If God wants you to stay, don't complain. Okay? So, I ask those questions. So even evil government set up by God, so don't complain. Question number 12. Now, very quickly, liberation theology. I just want us to also understand this. This is also something that can creep into the church very easily, more easily than Rushdoonyism. Okay? Liberation theology can be in your mind already, without you knowing, and you might bring it into church without you knowing. What is liberation theology? Anyone? What is liberation theology? Now, liberation theology is the belief and teaching that the church exists to try and liberate the underprivileged. Understand that? Liberate them from unequal situation and make them equal. So that is that concept. And liberation theology believes that Christ himself, being poor, he sought to liberate the poor and the underprivileged and the bullied. So Christ's role and Christ's aim was to liberate these people. Okay, because Christ himself was poor and downtrodden. Okay, so that is that concept. And they view whatever the church does with that lens, with that spectacles. The church exists to help these poor, help to make sure that the government do what is right to bring equality to society. Okay? And so they focus a lot on helping materially the poor and those that are downtrodden. Help them materially. Now, this liberation theology basically was started by the Roman Catholics. Okay, by the Roman Catholics. That's why you see they are in a lot of this so-called social work. Now, what is the problem with this? Did Christ not teach us to care for the poor? Ben, does Christ teach us to care for the poor? Yes, right? Christ did tell us to care for the poor. Did Christ tell us to make sure that we deal justly with all men, that we have justice? Yes, right? So Christ taught all this. Now, but there is a difference between that and making the church sole aim as justice and equality and helping the poor. There's a big difference. What is the purpose of the church? The other Ben. What's the purpose of the church? To evangelize, to bring the gospel to the world. All right? Now, but for them, the main thing is to solve social problems. But the church's main focus should be to bring salvation, spiritual salvation to men. Okay? So that's the thing. So if there is a tsunami in Hawaii, Hawaii has a volcano thing. Tsunami in the Philippines. Should church say, let's gather some money to help the poor there? Nothing wrong with that. But should that be our main focus? No. Understand that. Our main focus is always to preach the gospel. Now, so liberation theology is something that is so common. It may be in you. I just want to keep helping the poor, bringing when it's injustice, I want to step in and handle things and all that. Nothing wrong with you helping, wanting to bring justice, but that is not your key focus as a Christian. Now I'll ask you the next question. It got missing. So, now anyone working as a social worker here? No? Social worker. Should Christians be social worker? So if you're a social worker, means you're there to help the poor, help the disabled. Some of them are bullied in society or family abuse and all that. You're there to help them. Day in, day out, your job is to do that. Maybe some of you, maybe Fiona and Colin, you get involved in this. Do you get involved in this? Someone comes in with social problems, and then you also point them to certain departments, tell them, get in contact with them. You're concerned for them, you call them. Right? That may be part of your job. Now, what happens if so should Christians not be social workers? What do you think? Rowena? Think it's fine. Is it any different from a Christian being a judge? No difference. There's nothing wrong. Okay? But does it mean then the Christian is serving the social gospel? No. That's the job. Okay? But if a Christian feels that that is more important than bringing the gospel in every situation to a person, inside, especially outside the job, then the person's thinking is only about social inequality, physical care, and that's all. All right? So like the judge himself, the magistrate, he has to execute his job. He executes his job. Okay? But his job is not only to bring social justice. The Christian always exists to bring the the gospel. Okay? So don't say, oh, you're a social worker, then you're doing the social gospel. Now, how do we know then if BPCWA has ended up as promoting the social gospel? How do we know? Pastor suggested that we collect money for tsunami victims. Oh no, we are a social gospel church now. Have we become that? How do you know? You know a church has become a social gospel church is when majority of their focus, funds, and energy is poured into this kind of work. Understand that? The majority of the energy of the church is to what? Evangelize and build up the saints. Understand? Teach the word of God, that they may be built up in the faith. But if the church is always about raising funds, collecting clothes, and we're always focused around that, then that church has become a social gospel church. Understand? Okay? It's how much time, energy, resources we are using in that area. Okay, so last. Okay, so if our Prime Minister, of whatever country you live in, your Prime Minister is a bad, unbelieving Prime Minister, should you obey? As long as his laws are not sinful, you must obey. You must still respect and not speak evil, because who appointed this man or this woman? God. If you speak evil, like the angels, they dare not speak evil against any of these dignities, because they are so clear in their mind. God appointed them. They dare not speak against them. Okay? Does it mean that you cannot appeal? No. Paul said, I appeal to Caesar, but you do it respectfully. Okay? You have the right respect for the authority. Now, last but not least, and of course at that time especially they had to deal with this issue. Look at point number 4. Now, so no man is exempted from the government rule. Understand that? No one can say, I'm a pastor, I'm above the government. No one above the government rule, because God appointed. Now, let's see, much less had the Pope any power or jurisdiction over them in their dominion. Because remember, the Pope were fighting with the kings. We did church history, right? The Pope wanted to rule the king, right? So here they ensured that we understand the Pope has no dominion, church, and, well, anyway, they are a false church, or over any of their people. So the Pope does not have power and control over the citizens. Least of all to deprive them of their dominion or lives. Means the Pope does not have power to take life. The Pope cannot say, you are a heretic, I kill you. The Pope has no right to do that. Only the government have right to take life, because God is the one that puts sword in the government's hand. God did not put sword in the church leader's hand. Okay, so you disobey, I can only exercise this church discipline. I cannot say, I want to kill you. If he shall judge them to be heretics, so even if he say you are a heretic, whatever, you cannot execute the person. is for the execution is in the hands of the law. Okay? So Rushdoonyism is wrong. Rushdoonyism want to bring back all these things back to society. Social gospel is something that we must be very careful of. It's very easy to slide down that road. Okay? So in summary for this chapter, I hope you understand our relationship with the government. God appointed the government. Let that be explicitly clear in our mind. Good or evil, obey. As long as the laws are not evil, obey the laws. If there's not sinful end, stop joining those conversations of complaining against the government, because God says we speak evil of dignities. And even angels dare not do that. Let us pray.
话语词的，
Now, someone asked what is the difference between psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs.
有人说诗章、颂词、灵歌有什么不同？
Someone also asked, can we just have instrumental music?
有人说我们只要乐器的音乐就行就
Can,
好，
can
可以
we
吗？
worship God with instrumental music?
我们单单用乐器的音乐来敬拜神就好，可以吗？